Part 1. Arrival in Paris. Paul, a 23-year-old young man from Barcelona, had always loved cooking. He had enrolled in a cooking school in Paris. It was his first time leaving Spain. He arrived at the airport with one suitcase and a small bag. His flight was on time and he felt a bit excited. When he arrived at Charles de Gaulle Airport, it was raining. He took a taxi and went to the apartment. His apartment was in Montmartre, full of cafes and cobbled streets. When he entered the apartment, he smiled. It had a small kitchen, but it was perfect for practice. He opened the window and heard the sounds of the street. People's language was unfamiliar, but pleasant. Paul felt like he had entered a new world. He told himself, "This is what I've always wanted." He opened his laptop and emailed his mother. In his email, he wrote, "Mom, I've arrived. It's amazing here." That night, he fell asleep peacefully. Part 2. First day at school. The next morning, Paul woke up early and wore his white chef uniform. Excitedly, he went to the school's address in the Le Marais district. The cooking school was an old, beautiful building. The head instructor was a serious French chef named Maurice. Students from various countries were present in the class. Paul met a girl from Italy and a boy from Sweden. The first lesson was how to make French onion soup. The smell of butter and onions filled the kitchen. Maurice guided everyone carefully. Paul tried to work precisely and neatly. It was his first time using a professional chef's knife. Although his hands trembled, he didn't give up. At the end of the class, Maurice said, "Good job, Paul." He smiled and gained confidence. On the way back, he bought fresh bread and returned to the apartment. He told himself, "This is just the beginning." That night, he practiced the recipe again. Part 3. Language Challenge. Paul soon realized that the French language was a serious challenge for him. In class, the instructors mostly spoke in French. He often had to ask his friends for help. He bought a small notebook and wrote down new words. Every night, he practiced a few words. Sometimes he talked to locals to practice. At the bakery near his home, he tried to order by himself. The seller smiled and corrected him. Paul felt embarrassed but learned. Over time, his confidence grew. He listened to French music and watched films. He even bought a French children's book to read more easily. Learning the language became an important part of his experience. His friends were surprised by his progress. He felt like he was no longer just a tourist. Paul had become part of the city, and Paris had become a temporary but beloved home. Part 4. Local Market Experience. On Sunday morning, Paul went to the local market. The market was outdoors and full of colors and smells. He bought fresh fruit, cheese, and vegetables. An old French man explained a special type of cheese to him. Paul listened carefully and took notes. He became interested in how the stalls were arranged and how the sellers acted. Everything was new and exciting to him. At the end of the market, there was a spice stall. The smell of cinnamon and saffron filled the air. He bought some saffron to make paella. To him, the market felt like a live cooking class. Every little thing inspired him. He decided to visit the market every week. On the way back, he sat in a park and ate bread and cheese. The weather was sunny, and birds were singing. He told himself, "This is life, simple and delicious." That day became one of the best days of his stay. Part 5. A Small Gathering. One evening, Paul decided to invite his new friends. He invited them to his small apartment. He cooked paella, a traditional Spanish dish. His kitchen was crowded and full of laughter. Everyone helped. One chopped herbs, another set the table. Soft music played, and the atmosphere was warm. When the food was ready, they all sat down together. Paul talked about his family and his city. His friends complimented his cooking. Maurice, their instructor, also came and smiled. He said, "Cooking isn't just food, it's an experience." Paul felt like he had become part of a family. That night they talked until late. Different cultures had blended together. Paul said, "Everyone has a story. So does every dish." After everyone left, he happily cleaned the kitchen. And in his heart, he said, "Tonight, Everything was perfect. Part 6. A hard day. One day everything went wrong. Paul overslept and was late for class. When he arrived, the class was practicing desserts. He got nervous and dropped his dish. Everyone went silent for a moment. Maurice came over and said, "Stay calm. Try again." Paul took a deep breath and started again, but he didn't feel right and kept making mistakes. After class, he felt disappointed. He sat in a cafe and ordered a coffee. He told himself, "Maybe I'm not made for this." But then he remembered his early days. He learned that progress isn't always easy. He decided not to give up. That night, he practiced the same dessert at home. He failed many times but didn't quit. And finally, he got it right. Part 7, Visitors' Day. The cooking school had invited special guests. Top chefs from famous Paris restaurants had come. The students had to prepare special dishes. There was a lot of pressure on everyone. Paul was assigned to make the hors d'oeuvres. He worked with focus and care. He decorated each piece of food precisely. When the visitors arrived, everyone became quiet. One of them looked at Paul's dishes and smiled. He said, "This one looks really good." Paul let out a sigh of relief. When the event ended, Maurice called him over. He said, "You did very well today. I'm proud." Paul couldn't hide his smile. He felt closer to his goal. Hope grew in his heart, and he felt more motivated to continue. Part 8. Graduation Day. The final day of class arrived. Everyone wore their white uniforms. The air was full of excitement and a bit of sadness. Each student presented a special dish. Paul cooked a Spanish-French fusion dish. Morris tasted it and nodded. He said, "Creative and delicious." At the end, certificates were handed out. Paul received his with a smile. Everyone took pictures together and said goodbye. He walked along the Seine River, thinking of past days. 4 months ago, he was just a food lover. Now he was a real cook. He knew he still had a long way to go. But now he believed he could succeed. He told himself, "Paris will always stay in my heart." The sun was setting, and he walked calmly. Chef Paul was now ready for the next chapter of his life.